Well, Tina, we're back at it here, and we're crossing a threshold we haven't crossed before.
Well, I'm happy to be doing it with you. I crossing that bridge
Oh,
together.
wow. Okay. We we're moving into, I don't know, like the professional level of podcasters. I think
Wow.
I
It's
mean,
the
I'm not
first time
saying
anyone's called me that.
exactly, and I'm not saying we're gonna be Joe Rogan or anything, but
No.
I do think we've gotten into a new world, and with the big switch here is that we have a sponsor, and we've not
Wow.
had a sponsor for 5 seasons on the show. As people know, it's our 6th season, and our good friends over at Switch RCM have maybe insanely agreed to sponsor this madness. And so you'll be seeing some advertisements, which are harder than they seem.
They
Harder than they
are,
seem to do.
we're we're often off the cuff. At least I am. You often know more than I do. So it's a little preparation that's something to get used to. I'm excited though. I think your point of like we're moving into that like a slightly more professional space, like that's pretty exciting to have that change kind of come later. Have we worked out the kinks in 5 seasons? I don't know.
Well, I mean, were there kinks? I don't know.
I don't know. Now we're just throwing a whole new wrench into it. It's great.
Yeah, no, I think it was time. It felt not that we most people know you don't make money on podcasts. I'm still not making money on it. It's more of probably trying to cover the costs at this point. I think Rome's probably happy. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just one of those things where it's like it feels right to do, and it feels not intrusive in our content. We're still not doing sponsored content, as in
Mm-hmm.
like we're not taking a page from another podcast, which you're all familiar with, and someone paying to be on the show. We're not doing any of that.
Right.
I'm still refusing to do anything like that. But I think for trusted friends and agents that we know are doing great work, it feels like, yeah, why not? And so if I'm putting my name behind it, I need to know it's like something that I do believe in. And in this case, 100%. People I know and trust and doing amazing work. So
Well, and a benefit again to the community, which is really what we're based on, right? We're trying to grow the RCM community, continue to introduce people to perhaps people they don't know, and products they don't know. I mean, this is pretty exciting. Some
yeah,
new
yeah, it's like
stuff,
new world,
innovation
new
happening right before our
territory.
very eyes.
That's right. So you'll see probably, trying to keep the ads relatively short, but you'll see some stuff around um, probably mid episode or beginning episode, depending on when we feel like it fits. But please reach out to those guys. Anyone who's on the show is someone we've vetted and they're friends and people we trust. And I don't feel like I'm selling my soul here, which is I think a couple
Well,
seasons ago I would have felt that way, and I think in this case it's like, yeah, we're covering some costs. Like none of this is free, even though you all listen for free. So
that's right. Take a few
as
minutes.
as we're realizing, like if you're a avid listener of podcasts, like some of those shows, they have a lot of listeners and they make money, but some of those shows don't have a ton of listeners, and so it costs. It's like there's a real
Right.
cost to it. So
I was going to just share that I started like I had heard about a podcast that I had not listened to before. It's on one of the big networks. And literally it's a 22-minute episode. I want to say 6 to 8 minutes of it is ads and I'm out. Like I
six
can't.
to eight minutes of the 22.
Of 22 like it,
That's crazy.
that's worse than a sitcom. Like that's insane to me.
No, there's
So,
definitely something like that, and I think that's just that's too bad. But as we go into this series that we recorded in Las Vegas at HFMA, right? Yeah, it was
yes.
HFMA in June. We recorded 10 episodes, so this is the start of those episodes. We're releasing one a week. I hope you like them. Tina, you're in most of them. I think you're in 6 or 7
Yeah.
of them when you could schedule would allow.
I know.
And we had super fun. There no agenda as per usual, but in this case, really no agenda, and we talked
I
about
know.
all kinds of stuff.
We certainly did. We talked about Game of Thrones.
Yeah, which
We went back. We went back
we
in
went
time.
back. We went. Yeah, it was lots of stuff. So
fun.
I hope you enjoy these episodes, and new territory for us as we're starting to have a lot of content for the rest of the year for season 6.
That's right.
Almost
Buckle
double the
up.
amount of podcasts. So buckle up, people. Buckle up. All right. Thanks, everybody. Hope you enjoy the episodes. Don't be sorry. It's fine. There we go. Okay. I'm good to go. Yeah, we're good. Or not. Hold on, Rome. We're not good to go. Now we're good. All right, we're back. No Tina this time, but I have Sari. Did I say it right?
Yes.
Oh, thank goodness.
Perfect.
Sari Green
Yes.
MD with me, what's your role at Accuity?
I am physician executive director at
What
Accuity.
What does that mean?
Mostly I support the growth team, so I help explain to hospitals, hospital systems, what we do, how we work, kind of from the inside out. I've been with Accuity for almost 6 years now, so started when we were
6 years.
Yeah,
Oh, I
five
didn't
and a
know
half,
that.
over
Okay.
5.5 years. Yeah, so
Nice.
started working on one of our review teams. So I've kind of been with the company as it's grown, so I can just really help explain kind of on a more granular level why
Yeah, right,
we work.
right.
And
Especially if you get
Yeah.
another clinician in the room and you can
yes, exactly.
do the
Yeah.
physician speak. I don't know.
Physician
What do you want to call
speak,
it?
talk the coding language. Yes,
Yeah.
all of it. Yes.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Nice. So how did you, let's just start at the beginning. How did you get into this? Because you're a doctor, right?
I'm
MD?
a doctor. Yeah, I'm a
So,
surgeon.
Where did you start? Where did you grow up? And
You want to go all the way back to the beginning?
I mean, let's do it. I don't know.
All right. You can cut me off if I start rambling too much. I was a dancer growing up, actually, and I traveled around the world with my dance company.
You
and
did?
Yes, throughout high school, and so.
Where'd you grow up? Where would it be home if you had home?
I grew up near Vancouver, Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Vancouver.
Yeah, kind of
Did my
out
honeymoon there.
Did you? Oh, in the summer.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
Yes, it's beautiful in the summer.
Wonderful.
I grew up there, and then moved as soon as I finished high school. I was like, I am moving to California. I need warmer weather, and so I went to school at UC Santa Barbara as a dance major, actually. And one of my requirements for my dance major was a cadaver lab.
That was a requirement for
It
the
was a
dance.
requirement for the dance major. It was a cadaver lab, and my head exploded.
Like anatomy lab.
An anatomy lab, but we had cadavers, and
Yeah, I'm familiar.
I mean, you know,
I took anatomy, yes.
yes. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I'm gonna be a doctor, and
No way.
yes.
But hold on a second. So back up. This
Okay.
is pre you traveling the world, or
No, that was in high school.
you in high school you traveled the world?
Yeah, I was in a dance company, and we traveled a ton. We traveled.
To do
and
what?
Performed.
Compete? Like a competition?
Not really
Or,
competing. We
just-
competed a little bit, so that was why I went to California. Starting when I was 9 or 10, we started going to this competition in Los Angeles, and I remember the first time I was like, "Oh, this weather is November." It was dark and rainy at home, and I was like, "You can
This
live
is
here. This is
amazing.
an option."
Yeah, this is
That's why.
amazing.
So in my mind, I was like, as soon as I get to make my own choices when I finish high school, that's what I'm doing, and so that's what I did. No, I was in high school in a dance company, and we performed. We went to Europe. We performed with a group called Youth Ambassadors. We did kind of exchanges with local theater groups,
Okay.
and we performed at some of the expos
Yeah.
and stuff. Yeah, so
That's cool.
yeah, it was an amazing experience. It definitely triggered my lifelong travel bug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess you're just seeing all these places early on, like all over the world. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Wow.
Yeah.
And your parents were supportive, obviously?
My mom ran the dance school.
Oh, that helps.
So, yeah, it was kind of like her
helps.
vision for exposing kids to the world and,
Nice.
art exchange.
Are they still in
with you.
Vancouver?
They are, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Vancouver. I mean,
I grew
that's
not
incredible.
in the city,
Yeah, but I
outside
get
of
it,
it, but yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
it there.
Yeah. It's
It's my
nice.
favorite cities in the world.
Yes, it's lovely. It's lovely in the summer.
I mean, I'm from Detroit. I mean,
Yeah.
it's probably the same.
I've spent my entire adult life in Southern California, so I'm a little bit
So you're
spoiled
like,
by the weather.
I don't know
Yes.
anymore.
Yeah.
We don't go back for Christmas per se.
Exactly.
All right, so then you go to
so I
you
took
had this anatomy class.
So I took this cadaver lab, and I was just like, oh my goodness, this is.
What was the fascinating part about it? Like, what was the thing that triggered you?
I mean, you've taken an anatomy lab, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
amazing to
I didn't have the same reaction
You didn't have
you
the
did.
same reaction, right? All of a sudden, everything made sense, right? So as a dancer, you're training your body to do things,
Right.
and then all of a sudden you get to see how it all works. Like, oh, no wonder that's hard. That's how that muscle attaches to that bone, right? Oh, it just all made sense, and I wanted to learn more.
Yeah. I don't know if I had that same experience. I mean, the jar of eyes and like,
Yeah.
that was just like,
That
okay,
was just kind
I
of
feel like
weird and
that's
gross.
weird.
Yeah.
But I wasn't grossed out by it, but it was just like, okay, I'm probably not going to be I was pre-med, so this is the only thing.
Yeah, I was not pre-med. I
Yeah.
mean, I was after that.
I
but
took anatomy 3 times because it was a weeder class. The class they make really hard. Organic chemistry and anatomy were
Yes,
the two
yes.
like
Yeah.
they're going to weed you out or not.
Okay.
And org was all year at 8 a.m. in the morning, Monday through Thursday.
That's rough.
Rough.
Yes.
I hated it, but I did it the sophomore year. But the anatomy sucked because it's all memorization, right? But like, I was okay at memorization, but you needed to get you had to get a B or higher to take anatomy lab. That was the whole point.
Yep.
And I got a B minus by like 3 points on an exam. Right? So then I had to take it a second time so I could take the lab. Well, the second time I was like, I'll breeze through this. I
already
know it
know
now.
most of it already.
Turns out you
Yes.
don't remember
No, it
most
doesn't.
of it.
Yes.
And then I failed because I basically like sucked up the
Oh,
first
no.
test, and then I was like, I'm screwed. So the third time I took it, I got an A. I got the highest grade in the class. I did good because it was
Yeah.
like my third time. But at the time, I'm taking like pathophys and like a bunch of other advanced classes because I was like a junior or something, or a senior maybe. It's like, it was ridiculous. But then I got lab. I was able to do the lab and get that done. But yeah. But then I also realized I was not going to be a smart doctor. That was kind of like the lesson learned of like, yeah, probably, like I could do this, but I'm going to be an average, and I don't want to be average. So I got out and did business instead. I did health administration instead. Best decision I ever made.
I was going to say, it sounds like it's been a good trajectory
it's been
for
the
you.
best decision I ever
Yes.
made. Yes, on a lot of fronts. Just because
That's what life's about, right? Pivoting as.
Oh yeah, it was like, well, I always say like trying to find the wind and stuff.
Yeah.
And felt like just me trying to force it to happen. Which you could do, but
I like that. I haven't heard that.
wasn't-
I
yeah.
usually say following the spark, but the wind has a good
yeah, because it'd be like, well,
back
there's some wind behind
push.
it.
Yeah,
right?
wind behind you or against you, right?
And you'll know.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. So you did the anatomy class, and you're like, oh, I gotta keep going to
So
school.
then I just
or
like
you
added
went-
all the pre-med classes on top of my other
Oh,
stuff.
you just started,
Yeah, I
like,
just
doing it.
loaded them all in. Yeah.
And then you
And
applied
then
to school or what?
No. Then I took the MCAT, and then I was like, I am not ready to do this yet. And so I did a number of other things. I moved over to Japan for a while, taught English.
ESL, nice.
Yeah, I did that because I was like, I had enough foresight. I don't know if it was fully developed, but I kind of knew, like, once I got into the machine of medical school, like, it just keeps
That's what you
going,
were
right?
doing.
And so,
Right.
yeah, there were things that I wanted to explore, and I wanted to live abroad. So, yeah, I lived in Japan for about a little over a year. I've always been really interested in kind of mind-body connection and how, health and wellness. And so when I came back from Japan, I went to Chinese medical school for a couple of years. I studied traditional Chinese medicine for a couple of years.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was really
this
cool.
This is getting better and better.
It was really cool.
Incredible story.
It was cool, and I also, I knew that I wasn't just going to do that. It was almost just not
So
just
where in
going to do
China
that,
were
but
you?
I wasn't in China. I was in San Diego.
And there's a Chinese
yeah, there's a
medical
traditional.
school?
Yeah, like so where an acupuncturist would
Oh,
go
yeah,
and,
sure,
and
sure,
train and
yeah,
learn. Yeah, so I studied that for a few years, and then my MCAT scores were expiring, and I was not going to take that test again.
You were like,
So that's why I applied to
been
medical
there,
school.
done that,
Yeah, I
yeah,
applied
okay.
to
Plus your
and
credits at some point from the undergrad, they start running out, right?
maybe.
Yeah, no, I think you have
Do
like
they?
5 years.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I was.
So you
And
then you're like, you don't want to take like,
yeah, I was not. I
chemistry
wasn't
over
doing
again.
anything
Yeah,
again.
No, I'm not
I
doing
was
that
not doing
again.
anything
Yeah.
again. So then I went to med school at UC Davis.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what I was going to go into. I thought I would do something that kind of integrated health and wellness and probably primary care and incorporating in the kind of complementary Chinese medicine type stuff I had done. And then the way med school works is your first 2 years are primarily classroom, right? You're
Doing book
learning
work, yeah.
like drinking from a fire hose learning, but you're learning just all of the stuff.
Sure.
And then third year, you start doing clinical rotations. And when people would ask me, what are you going to be? What are you going to do? And often people would say, oh, you're going to be a pediatrician, because that's kind of an assumption for women, I guess. I got asked that a lot.
Just like OBGYN pediatrician. You're like, what?
Right,
Why?
yeah. And my answer was always like, I'm not really sure. Definitely not surgery, but
Yeah, right.
because that was just seemed way out in left field. And then the same thing happened to me when I did my surgery rotation. I was like, this is the coolest thing that I have ever seen in I need to learn how to do this. And then I just pivoted and
Wait, so
gung-ho surgery'd. Yeah.
can I guess what kind of surgeon you were? No.
What that surgery was that
No.
made me...
Oh.
Oh.
Well, I know what it's not. Because it's not neurosurgery. I know that.
Oh, yeah.
It's not, right?
No.
No. The most boring. So, little known fact about me
Yeah.
is when I got out of grad school, I ended up going to work at a hospital, So I was a health administration, right?
Okay.
So I worked at a hospital. And then a couple years in, I got this opportunity to work in surgery. So I was
Oh.
business manager over surgery.
Okay.
So I sat in a lot of these surgeries, and I was always like, God, this is boring. The most boring is neurosurgery. It's
Neurosurgery.
terrible. So I'm trying to think what would be.
Wait, were they all boring?
No, one of the first surgeries I ever was in that world. It was like this. It was this big cancer in the stomach.
Yeah, those aren't boring.
Well, the guy, the surgeon was so nice to me, and there was 2 surgeons actually, because they just were like, it was such a complicated, and he's like in the thing, and he's like, come here. And I was like, yeah. He goes, this is right here what separates the men from the boys. He goes, I make this cut and I miss, and this is going to go south. I said, this is it right here. And then he does the cut, so it was like a tense moment. You can kind of tell everyone's like, just wait.
Holding their breath. Yeah.
And then he takes it, and they take this silver thing, and I swear to God, it was a football.
Wow.
That's how big the tumor was. It's like, that's not a kidney. That's like someone's tumor. That's how big it was.
Yeah.
And he rolled it out, and I just remember being like, oh my God, that was a cool surgery. But the rest are just like, okay, I think I've had enough.
Day-to-day.
So I'm trying to think what would be interesting for you. That would be like, maybe orthopedic, maybe like you saw a total hip or something, total knee.
Well, in med school, what I saw?
That's bloody, but
In med school, what I saw, it was just the first one that I saw. No, it was like a hysterectomy or something.
oh,
Yeah, and so I don't know that it was the surgery so much as just like, whoa, this is...
people are doing this.
People
stuff?
are doing this, and yeah. I did not go into OB-GYN. I went into general surgery.
To what?
General surgery,
General
which is
surgery,
kind
yeah.
of like
Yeah, yeah.
a blanket
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
of,
No, I get it, yeah.
yeah. But yeah, so that was that fork.
did you like? How long did you general surgery for?
So not long. I did. I trained at Harbor UCLA at a county hospital. So that was
experience.
An experience. Yeah, it was 6 years. It was a lot of trauma. There's a lot of trauma at that hospital. Really good training.
When you say trauma, what do you mean?
Trauma, gunshot wounds. Kind of
knife wounds.
South Los Angeles, the
not traffic
gang
accidents.
wars. A lot of traffic accidents too. We were at the kind of intersection of a number of big
stuff.
LA freeways. Yeah, we had a lot of and then afterwards, I had another big turn. Some personal life stuff that kind of shifted my trajectory out of clinical medicine.
Completely.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about it or no?
I had a baby and got divorced at the same time.
That's traumatic.
Yeah, and so life being a surgeon with an infant alone.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
It just I couldn't reconcile. People do it. I know people who have done it and they're amazing. And for me, I couldn't wrap my head around.
So you and a baby got divorced the same time.
Yes.
That's
well,
rough.
I was pregnant actually.
That's rough.
Yeah, it was a lot. And then I found Accuity in there. So I did.
Wait a second. Like you just skipped. Did you skip years? What happened?
I skipped a few years. I skipped a few years of
Wait, did you not work
pulling
for
my
a few
hair
years
out.
then? Did you?
I did. I did wound care. Actually,
Okay.
I worked. It was kind of like didn't have to carry pager, didn't have night stuff, could kind of balance it, and it was it was intended to be just a short bridge, and I did it for a number of years, but. While I was trying to figure out how I could balance, life. And then when my son was 2, I was like, this is none of what I'm doing is sustainable right now. And I kind of started looking into the non-clinical space. At that point, I was really what I had originally intended was that I was going to kind of pause and then go back and I was going to do a breast oncology fellowship.
You what?
I was going to do a breast oncology fellowship.
Okay,
was kind of what the original plan.
Okay.
And then that seemed less and less like a viable option. Yeah. So I started looking into what non-clinical options were, which are weird as a doctor, right? You're kind of, I was like, I can crack someone's chest open, or I can maybe work at Starbucks, but I don't know how to make coffee. You don't really feel like you have any other options.
It's
because
funny
it's
you
been
say
such
that.
intense training.
It's so true.
It's so narrow though, right?
I talked to some other surgeon friends of mine.
Yes.
One in particular, I play tennis with him, and he's like, what could my other options be? And I was like, dude, you could do so many things.
Yes.
And he's like, what?
No.
He had no concept of it.
Yes.
He could not wrap his mind around the fact that he could do consulting or something.
Yes.
I was like, dude. When I was at McKinsey, and so when I was at McKinsey, I had a number of people that we worked with that were physicians. And they don't practice medicine anymore, or they do a day at clinic, but they're doing consulting work.
Yeah.
So I was like, dude, you could do that kind of stuff.
We don't really know it, right?
No,
because
we
have training. Trainings are really my training was a decade, right? It's narrow and it's focused and it's not. Yeah, and you kind of don't know the world outside of your world, even though you're in healthcare. You don't know all the other stuff that you could do with that.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so crazy. What are you going back to your? I'm curious because going back to your time at the UCLA hospital.
Harbor. Yeah.
Yeah. What are you? Do you think that changed you? Like, do you think there's a piece of you where it was like? I mean, had you seen? I don't know, life you seen that side of
No one's seen
life?
that side of life until you work in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I worked inner city, so
you did.
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. You know that, right? It's
I was involved in a shooting at a hospital in the ER.
Yes.
Yeah, it was wild. But that's traumatic, right? That was traumatic.
And it's all day, every day, right? It's all day, every day trauma.
What do you
on so many levels, right?
How do you think
for the
changed
individuals, for the community, it's it's just it's a lot of layers to wrap your mind around, and then to be working in all the time. It's
How do you think it impacted you? Like, if you look back on that today and you were like, I don't know, more cynical? I don't know, like, what would the word be, but...
Yeah, so there's an interesting piece to that, to be honest, I mean, that was a long time ago, and I'm still slowly unpacking. I separately have done actually a lot of trauma training, not trauma like gun, knives, but like trauma-informed training courses and whatnot. And as in doing that, I have memories come back to me, and I kind of see what that response is. And I think it's for everybody through medical training. Medical training by nature has a lot of trauma to it, and not a lot of space for processing. That trauma, right? Yeah, it's not really built in. And for me, one of my big memories, I remember when I was a medical student, a third-year medical student, I remember seeing my first person die. And I vividly remember, they got brought in off a helicopter, having chest compressions done while they were getting wheeled in. So obviously it was bad. It was bad. They got brought into the trauma bay. They got coded for a short period of time, and then someone called it, time of death, and then everybody cleared out, and then the cleaning crew came in. And I remember standing there crying, this was this person's time, and who's here with, it just was like this really big moment for me. And then fast forward to my second year of residency. So what would that have been? Fourth year internship, 3 years later, okay. Or in the trauma bay, somebody died in there, which happened every day, often multiple times a day. And my intern came up to me and said, "Our medical student's crying." And I remember thinking, I was in the middle of a 30-hour shift. I had like somebody on the table in the OR waiting. I had like 5 consults waiting to see. I had people I had on the floor that I was carrying like 4 pagers across my 4 pagers across my pants are falling down because I have so many pagers on. And I just remember thinking like, I can't deal with that. Go deal with it. And there's like moments like that. Where you're like, or you're talking to a family, giving them really bad news, and you're like, part of your mind is like, okay, if I don't get out of here in a minute, I'm not going to get to eat before the next case, and I haven't eaten for since yesterday morning at 6, and now it's tomorrow at 9, and there's moments where you kind of, you're like, well, I'm not a monster, and like I'm in survival mode all the time, and so in that respect, it changes you. I don't think it permanently changes you, but I'm still processing. Like, those things come back to me now. I have those memories, and I'm like, whoa,
Totally.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
All right, Tina, here we are. This is our first advertisement on the show. How do you feel? I don't even know what to...
I'm excited. I'm nervous. It's a real switch for us.
It's a real switch. Nice. That was like the perfect intro for our good friend Nate from Switch RCM. Nate, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I appreciate y'all having me.
Great. Tell us a little bit about Switch. How did it get started? We know that you founded it with your wife, which is insane. And Tina and I think it's crazy, but we don't know your wife that well, so. Tell us a little bit about how it got started.
A lot of our clients will comment on that unique sort of origin story. Wife and I actually met at work at Epic, and we worked together at a couple of jobs after. So for us, it was sort of natural to work together, and led to the creation of Switch as a company. Is I was working on the healthcare provider side. I was in senior management on a revenue cycle team that was responsible for physician billing. I have a technical background coming from Epic. I understand Epic and the data structures, and being on the operations side, I no longer had access to the data that I felt I needed to effectively do my job. That was a big thing. And so my wife was working with a data analytics firm at the time, and I said, hey, I've got an idea. How about you quit your job and we start a company together, get this data that I need to do my job, and make it usable, really unlock the value of it. So that was part of the original premise. And then the other piece was, well, how do we start this business? How do we get it going? How do we make money? One of the things that we saw with that provider that I was working for is they weren't collecting any money on underpayments. And so we saw that as an opportunity. They had a vendor in there, but it wasn't resulting in recoveries for the client. So what we did is our first engagement for Switch was a revenue recovery project where we helped that client across several of their major commercial payers recover millions of dollars in undercharges and underpayments, and sort of correct some issues that they had with setting their prices that wasn't getting them the maximum reimbursement. Anyway, that really turned into the core focus of Switch is using standard data, using billing system data, and being able to unlock the value of it. And so those are the areas where we focused, is continuing to unlock value in standard transactions and billing system data.
Well, that's fantastic.
Well,
So
who
you
doesn't
took
love the sound of millions of dollars, first of all?
Exactly. So you really took like what you saw as being like, I don't have access to this data anymore, but I know I can help people, get access to it, which has always been an issue. Fantastic. All right, how do we find Nate and the team at Switch? Like, how do people reach out?
Come to our website, which is switchrcm.com.
All right, folks, if you need help with Epic and data and trying to figure out underpayments positions, interest payments, some analytics issues, like, reach out to these guys. These guys are wicked smart, as we like to say on the show. Wicked smart. Well, thanks, Nate. We appreciate it. We'll be hearing more from you.
Thank you.
Now, back to the show.
That was fascinating. Have you ever done like EMDR? You know what that is?
I do know what it is.
Yeah. I've been doing it I only say it because I've been doing it this last year and a half.
Yeah.
With my therapist, and it's been fascinating. On so many, it's so weird if you haven't done it.
I haven't actually done it, but I've done
It's
around
so
it
weird.
a lot. And yes,
It's
that's
so
what
weird.
I hear.
But I will say that it has probably my most profound moments of clarity, of like understanding like maybe why I am the way I am on some things.
Yes.
It has brought back memories that are like, oh, these things shape me. And it wasn't what I thought. Like, that is interesting on so many levels. It's been very probably my most impactful moments of like my journey of like unpacking my whole a really very difficult childhood in a lot of ways. I moved like 27 times before I was 20.
Wow.
So that's a long history, but it's interesting when you start to unpack those, because they say there's this piece of like, my therapist warned me of like, there's this thing called flooding that could happen where it's like just memories start coming back for you. Childhood memories, or in your case, might be like this, but it was I would say that it was like I don't know, like what the word I'm looking for, maybe like a necessary part of like the unpacking of that, where I don't think I would have done the work had I not, I don't know. I would not wanted to like figure out like why am I doing these things, whatever those might be.
I think unpacking trauma is like an onion kind of, right? Like, you can only process so much at a given time, right? And then you get to a stabilization point, and then you do something intentionally, therapy, EMDR, coaching, there's so many different ways.
Sure.
I just finished actually a couple days ago, a trauma-informed yoga certification. And that was an interesting thing, because I did it for more.
For you did this?
Yes.
We bring a yoga therapist to my leaders forum that Todd comes to.
You what?
I bring my yoga guy.
Oh, really?
Who's a yoga therapist at the VA hospital in Detroit.
Really?
So he does yoga for our pain management. That's right. And I got interested in yoga about a year ago. At the same time I did therapy. At the same time I started doing therapy.
It's like the top-down processing, right? Like, you can think through things, process it, and like rewire your,
or even slow
really
down.
wire it, but like the bottom-up processing, because trauma gets stored in your body.
Absolutely.
Right? And so you need
But what
both
he
all that
says-
somatic stuff.
Right. So what he says, and I'm sure he's found the same thing, is that he's basically like, what's interesting about yoga therapy is that it starts to, even in small doses, can start to unlock trauma.
Yes.
And so what we've found at our forums, we go deep, right? Like we do go into deep stuff and some personal stuff.
Really?
And so we'll integrate like even just 10 minutes of yoga at different times during the day, right? But what we found was like people are like, we've done it those last 2 times. And I think what we found is like, it not only centers people back to like this, like it centers them back with like, okay, we're going to get back in, let's just do 10 minutes here. But people shared things they would probably never share
Yes.
with the rest of the group. Now I create an environment which it does that, but
When you create a safe container,
we do.
people.
Right. But
Yeah.
I do think therapy is somewhat, like yoga's unlocked some of those things where I would have not been able to get to that before.
Yeah.
Which is, most people don't realize it's happening.
Yeah.
So it's very fascinating you did the certification.
Yeah. So the month before I did a trauma-informed coaching certification, which incorporates a lot of physicians do it, this program.
Sure.
And so that's kind of the top down, right? It's a lot about learning about trauma and but from a more the thought part of it. And then this was kind of the bottom up somatic piece of it.
Yeah.
And it is interesting how it, I started having even during it, like dreams about things. Like it brings it, there's, I love this stuff. It's fascinating.
so
Have you
true.
read the book, The Body Keeps the Score?
I've read part of that book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
The other book is that you would love. You probably already read it, but it's a physician turned therapist.
Okay.
And it's You Should Talk to Someone.
No,
Or maybe
I don't,
You Should Talk to Someone.
No, I don't know that one.
It's incredible.
Okay, I'll put it to the top of my
It's
list.
actually, she's based in LA.
Really?
This is a true story.
Okay.
So she wrote the book. She's a therapist going through her own trauma. His relationship breaks up.
Yeah.
She's a physician at the time.
Yeah.
Like she does this crazy thing where she was a journalist, then she became a physician.
Yeah.
Then she wanted to become a therapist. Like it was, and then did it, and then she talks about some of her patients through these processes.
Yeah.
It was like, it's incredible. You would love it.
Okay.
Actually.
I'm
The way
excited
you're
about it.
describing your journey actually is a lot like hers, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, you would love it. It's really good. Maybe you should talk to someone.
Maybe you should. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll
And
add
she
it
does
to-
a really good job of like, it's funny at times,
Yeah.
but it's very real. I mean,
Very
it's-
real and human,
talking
yeah.
through like her own, she starts to see a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And then realizing like, I know the tricks you're playing, like stuff like that, right? It's like, I know what you're trying to do here. But it is funny. Like, I don't know. This is good. That's awesome. So you've like gone through this, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, you've kind of done this whole thing. You've gone through such a journey, it feels like already.
Following, what did you say about the wind? Because I'm going to start using it. Following
you're
the wind.
following the wind. You're
Following the
listening,
wind.
feeling-
Yeah.
following the wind.
I feel like that's kind of how life has been.
Definitely feels like you're always looking for the next, like, oh, this is the thing I should go.
Or like the next right step, right? What feels right? And even if it doesn't really make sense, I think when you live like that, right, then it takes you in a direction that you might not be able to see, 3 years ahead, but this feels right. And so it's going to take you on a course to
Yeah, I don't know if
Explore.
you've ever heard this. I call it Kairos moments. Have you ever heard this term?
No.
So the Greek have, we've done this in the podcast before, but it's okay for the listeners. The Greek have 2 words for time. And chronos you've heard of, right?
Yeah.
It's called linear time.
Yes.
Kairos is another, it's like Kairos.
Okay.
It's another version of time that they have a different word for, and it's a moment in time. So think of it as like a moment.
Okay.
And part of this around kind of like Kairos is always looking for those, what we call Kairos moments, where they stick out. Like the universe is, you call it God, universe, whatever you want to call
Yes.
it. The universe is telling you something. And it could be like as simple as like, oh, that person said a word, like you said a phrase, and why did that stick out to
It's
me?
like noticing the synchronicities.
Yeah, it's like something
yes.
sticks out.
Yeah.
Like you have very specific. You actually talked about 3 of them that were very impactful. You told the story about one, seeing someone die. You told the story about the other one, seeing the anatomy class, right? Like,
Yeah.
and the theory is, I mean, that probably the practical part of this is that if you listen for those, some of those won't be, they won't be anything more than like, oh, that was interesting. But if you actually go through what we call a learning circle, and you try to figure out like, what is it trying to tell me, you could alter your course. So you would have been doing this linear time and gone down this path, but instead you took another path because you actually listened and were like, I should go do this. You did it 3 times. It's funny you say this. I was thinking this when you did it, when you were saying it, I was like, oh, these are like, she's actually listening.
Yeah.
Or maybe you weren't, but you knew you had to do something with it.
Yeah. Trying to. I feel like it's like, life kind of like whispers at you and then louder
Absolutely.
and louder. And if you don't listen, eventually you course correct, right? But it might be kind of melodramatic in a way that you wouldn't have chosen.
Yes, I tell a crazy story if you want to hear it, but
I do.
I left a job to go work at McKinsey. You familiar with this firm? You know what McKinsey is?
Sort of, not really.
It's a big consulting firm.
Okay, yeah.
And it's
I do.
one of the most prestigious
Okay.
like places, right? And I had already accepted the position. And part of this is also like I kind of wanted to like stick it to my old employer. Like I didn't like them very much, and I was mad and kind of like I wanted this promotion. I didn't get it, but I got this amazing opportunity to go work at McKinsey. And I remember like being in our closet, and I'm getting a shirt out of the closet, and I heard a voice. This is a true story. I heard a voice. And maybe it's an inside voice, whatever you want to call it, God, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. Say, don't take the job.
Oh.
And I was like, whoa, like that's not going for me. Right? Like, I wouldn't have thought that. And I was like, I mean, I have to take the job. Like, I already took the job. I kept thinking like, well, that's not, but I could feel it in my stomach. Like that was real. And I just like, nope, I can't. I don't know where that thought came from. Put that thought back down. And then I heard it again. Don't take the job. And I just was like, I was like one of those things where you're like, okay, I can't listen to that. So I pushed it down. I went down the stairs, and I just like, I almost pretended it didn't happen. I took the job. I moved to Cleveland. This is a Cleveland story. It's actually one of my podcast episodes. I told the whole story. It's a much longer story here. But basically, I had young kids. We moved my wife, and we moved to Cleveland. Didn't know anyone. And it was one of these moments where it's like everything associated with that was forcing door open. No wind. There's no wind in this movie.
Yes, wind in front of you.
And then full circle, like we're probably there 6 months, and my wife and I come home from a trip, and I started traveling. Come home from a business trip, and we basically, she just breaks down. And I just like, I go, it's so weird because doesn't even feel like this is our house. And she goes, oh my God, I feel the same way. And then the moment I did not remember until that moment was it just like literally came back to me, and I said, actually, I feel like God told us that we shouldn't have taken the job, and I just ignored it.
Yeah, that's like the whispers, right?
And she just looked at me and she goes, what? And I was like, yeah. I will say, as soon as we had that moment, like it wasn't going that well at McKinsey either. That's the craziest part. Like it wasn't going that well. Like I wasn't doing very good, at least in my mind. Like just it was so much different, and it was so hard. The whole thing was hard, right? And then it just got so much better.
No.
Like we started we couldn't make friends. Like it was this weird, like we couldn't, like
So
we
you
easily make
stayed.
friends.
You stayed at the job. You stayed in the place, and
We ended up staying another maybe year.
okay.
But then I got this opportunity to move back to Detroit to build this company, and then it just felt right. Like it felt like, oh, this is the right thing to do. There's wind behind this. Like not just moving back. It just felt like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
My friends know that story, they just refer to it as a Cleveland moment because it's like, it's just not listening to like,
Yeah.
and how many of us do that all the time?
Yeah. I think we all do.
You'd be a
right?
trauma surgeon right now, or you'd be a
Yeah.
dancer.
Or a dancer, right? Who knows? And some people do, I think, just kind of stay, this is what I was going to, and I think probably at some point in life you have a shift. We all do, right? Kind of shifts in what am I doing? What am I here for? What are my big picture, but
Hope so.
maybe not all. Yeah.
So you feel like you're in the right spot.
So now I am, yeah. I found Accuity, and I started working here. We were small then, right?
Yeah.
There were 20-something doctors when I started. I liked it because I still using my doctor brain, right? Like, we're doing cases. I was still thinking. I was
Still
learning a lot, and I was
working
learning
through it.
something new,
Right,
right? I
totally
didn't know
new,
this
right,
space. Clinical
right.
doctors don't really know this space. And kind of got to see the company grow. And then we got bought
Yes.
by Ferry. That happened, which was interesting because first company I had never worked for. I didn't know that was a thing.
You're like, this
I didn't
can
know
happen?
This happens. Oh, fascinating. Yeah, so it's like a whole new. And then I transitioned into this role. Really, Todd, our CEO, called me and was like, "I need you to do something for the company." And I was
You were
like,
just reviewing charts.
I was reviewing charts. Yeah, I had never been in sales or the business side
Right,
of it
right.
or anything. And so I was like, okay, I try it out, right? But totally foreign to me. I would sit in meetings like with Google open, like, what's an MSA? What's an SOW?
So
I didn't know
true.
when
So
you
true.
start something new, you don't know
No,
the
you don't know the
language of
language.
it,
It's
and so
always
you
like-
can't even participate in.
So
And
true.
so it was a steep learning curve. And I also would have said before, I am not somebody who likes to speak publicly. And then all of a sudden now, I have this role where I support, we have 7 sales VPs. I support all of them. So I do all of the meetings with our prospects and
You'll
present
sit in there, right? Yeah.
what we do.
Yeah, because
right?
you gotta
And it's totally, I love it. It's been
That's
not
awesome.
something that kind of before I would have ever predicted that I was doing, but
Right.
but it's fun. I get to talk to so many interesting people, all across the country, and yeah.
It's awesome. And you still live in LA?
No, I moved back up north. I'm in Washington now for the last little bit, but probably I need to head
Seattle
somewhere
or where?
up a little bit north from there.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're closer to
close-
Vancouver then.
Closer, yeah,
Nice.
closer to family.
So you do have winters again.
I have winters again. Yeah.
Look at
I
you.
need to figure out how to get myself south again.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, Sari, this has been awesome.
Yeah. Nice to talk to
I
you
didn't
too.
expect any of it. I don't know. That's why you say you don't know what you're gonna get. I love it. It was a great story. I would love to have you back on when after you started to unpack some of those things. It would be interesting to see what you found.
Yeah. Thanks. I'd love to. I'm going to check
Very
out
cool
that
journey.
book.
You love it. I'm telling you.
And
you're gonna love
interested in your yoga therapy that you incorporate into your
it. Oh,
treats.
yes.
I love that.
Yeah. Mike is the best. Yeah, my guy is he's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, he's using it for pain management.
Yeah.
The VA, he does over 130 classes.
It's amazing.
A lot of it one-on-one, obviously,
Yeah.
in the VA, but then he does stuff at night where he's always doing stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's awesome. So, good stuff. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
It was awesome.
Take care.
My good friends, my good friends, my good friends. Do a little bit of everything, everything. Cause it takes a bit of everything, everything. My good friends, my good friends.